Thank you, Sachin. First of all, let me say, even people like us who are long-term practitioners of, digital infrastructure, creating of digital highways in the country, are left stunned when you, in a very small, encapsulated manner, hear all the progress that has been made, that Mr. Kant talked about this morning, the data that he spewed out in terms of the numbers and the sheer scale of what is being done in this country is truly mind-boggling. And that India is now today ready to use that not as a hard gold or hard asset to trade with the world, but what we heard from Mr. Kant was soft power. We will be happy to share the gains that India has made in the digital area with the rest of the world on bases which are not extractive. So India has its oil now, the newfound oil, which is our digital stack, which is our new found enthusiasm of young tech entrepreneurs, the startup culture, the massive amount of work that has been done on digital identity, the Jam Trinity, as the Prime Minister has titled it, the Jan Dhan, the banking accounts for all, linked through mobile and digital identity, is a very, very powerful tool. And I can tell you, we use it all the time for our KYC, for onboarding millions of customers every week. And the cost to do that is mind-boggling. It's absolutely nothing. We're talking about, you can't even count it in cents. Now, there are countries out there, 133 countries we heard, which are crying out to get onto such kind of activities, and they can't look to the West. It's too expensive. It's IP-based. Anything that you touch from there is extremely expensive. India couldn't afford it, and if India wouldn't have found its own rhythm, it would have been left far behind, because as you all know, India's hard infrastructure is still woefully inadequate. While we are moving at breakneck speed, we need decades to get to a world-class infrastructure. But that is where I would say the digital substitution that we found at a very, very low cost at frugal levels on mass scale is the answer to the world. And there will be affluent countries which will want all the bells and whistles that the US will provide. But there are lots of countries. I work in 14 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. They cannot afford that. But can India plug its soft power there? An absolute yes. And that's something that India is already working on. And I personally feel that this could also be a tool for India to regain or reclaim Africa, which to my mind, the last 10, 15, 20 years, we've lost to China. Africa was always much more closer to India, especially the eastern part of Africa. And it kind of yielded to China, who put out big checks and big projects. And this will be the way for us to get back into African hearts and minds. Coming back to India, I think what was very important was to lay out a digital infrastructure. And I've been a traveler on this journey from 1982, 83, when we started manufacturing India's first digital phones. And to that extent, I would say what has been achieved here has been absolutely tremendous, whether it's fiber, highways, whether it is the radio waves, whether it's been the massive proliferation of mobile networks. And now the new enthusiasm that India has found through space, which will be the SATCOM delivered to those places, which may perhaps never be covered for the next 10, 15 years, deep in rural India, deserts, mountains, forests, oceans, in air, and all that is coming as well. So I would say India has put in very high amounts of hard dollars in building the infrastructure on which what Mr. Khan described as the ecosystem that has been developed. Is there more work to be done? Absolutely. I mean, this is a very, very capital-intensive industry. It requires billions of dollars. It's a relentless thing. Sometimes we feel we are on a treadmill. You just keep on running. I mean, there is really no pause. You move from one technology to another. By the time we had rolled out 3G, it was obsolete. We had to quickly move to 4G. And as we have put out billions of dollars in 4G, including on spectrum, we have 5G upon us, which is probably going to have the fastest and widest rollout anywhere in the world. And we know now the talk of 6G has started. So there is really no respite here. So all I wish is government keeps on looking at this infrastructure in a more benign way. And one area where I keep on always raising my voice is it is still a very heavily taxed sector. And that is where the government needs to focus on. If this is indeed the fundamental platform for how India is going to deliver to its masses all the goodies that the government needs to give it to its society, I think we need to be taken better care of. It's very important that we have a robust, sustainable digital infrastructure providers in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Mittal. Thanks a lot. Good that you referred to Africa. When I was doing my book, Logic of Sharing, with the Oxford University Press, I did visit a couple of African countries and saw the CSR that Airtel is doing in several of these countries. I think it's absolutely important what you emphasize in terms of not just as corporate social responsibility, but also be connecting with Africa, with fellow countries. My next question to you is more in terms of India's G20 presidency. As Mr. Amitabh Kant mentioned, the technology contribution, the role that we discussed this morning of geopolitics, how you look at India's G20 presidency from your own sector and your own experience, how you look at in what way India can contribute, and what are the sectors you think the Indian G20 presidency should contribute in?
Well, I think G20 has come to this country under this presidency at a very difficult time at one level, but equally a very, very important and exciting time. What can India contribute through this 1 year of presidency? I think a lot of things can be done. First and foremost, I think world is a very fractured place today. Unfortunately, we'll be taking over when the world is really in many parts of the globe at loggerheads. There are many, many fault lines that have developed in the last just 12 months, 24 months. And can India, use its, strengths, its long-standing image of a peace-loving nation to bring some of these warring factions together? And we all know that India can really talk to both sides. And that is the power that India enjoys. It is accepted by both sides. More importantly, the two warring factions also accept India as, in some sense, a peace broker. So India has a role to play. And it can probably use this platform to start to bring some harmony around the globe. We will never be able to probably agree on all the issues, but there are larger issues at stake. People will be really facing poverty and hunger across the globe. We need to fix the situation there. Secondly, much has been talked about. I won't take too much time. India will use this opportunity for calling out on the digital divide. And I think the Prime Minister made a point in Indonesia that that will be one of the areas where the government of India will work. And the third one really is India will connect G20 to Africa in a much more deeper and meaningful way. And it must do that.